So, from the last classes onwards, we started discussing about the control flow statements in C. First, we have seen the different varieties of if else, if else, if, etc., etc. So that statements we have seen in the next, in the previous class. So in this class, what we will discuss about is the switch case break statements, switch case and break. So that these three things, these three words comes together, switch case and break. Normally it is also known as switch case statements or switch statements itself. So this is one of the most flexible selection program control. In the case of if and if else if conditions, you have to check a number of conditions in order to get into a specific line of code. That is, if there are different conditions, multiple conditions to be checked, then there you have to include multiple ifs and if else statements has to be included. But in the case of switch case statement, if you have more than one branching, that is depending on the value of depending on the specific value of a particular variable or a particular condition, if there are multiple branching possible inside a program, then the best way is to do it by switch case statement. So this is also known as the multiple choice statements because there are multiple choices available because of the different choices. If you give a particular choice, say 1, if you are inputting the value 1, then a set of statements will be executed. And if you input the value 2, in that case, another set of statements will be executed. Likewise, there can be multiple, any number of choices are possible there. It is something like when we call a telephone, what you say, the tele assistant call. Then they say that for this purpose you have to press 1, for this purpose you have to press 2, for this purpose you have to press 3, etc., etc. So when you input 1, we go to some direction, and if it is 2, then we go to another direction. It is almost similar. This is the switch case statement is almost similar to that one. That is, you are inputting a specific value, and depending on that particular value, what is to be done, further what is to be done, that is decided. So the condition with the if statement is that there are only 2 possible values. That is, either 2 logical values are possible. Either a true value is possible or a false value. That is, a non-zero value is possible or a 0 value is possible. So there are only 2 options available. And if you want multiple options in the case of using a if statement or if else statements, you have to use multiple if else loops. If else statements has to be used multiple times. But in the case of switch case break statement, it is not the case. Using the same switch case statement, you can create a number of branchings. So that is the condition with the switch statement. So and along with the switch, the case as well as break is also necessary. Otherwise, if you doesn't use the break properly, then there can be errors in our program that we will see. So this is the flow diagram or flow chart for a switch case statement. So here we are switching. So here it will be the switch. So suppose switch is some specific variable, some specific variable is to be switched. Suppose switch A. So depending on the value of A, if case 1, that is, if case 1 means if the value of A is 1, then these are to be done. So these actions are to be done. Case 1 actions are to be done. Then after the case 1 actions, then you have to put the break. That is case 1 statements. See, programming statements are to be included here. And then a break statement is also to be included. And then if this case is false, then it goes to the next checking, that is case 2, that is whether the value of A is 2 or not. If the value of A is 2, then the case 2 actions are completed. The case 2 actions are executed. Then the break statement is also executed. At the end of this case 2 actions, the break statement is also coming up. So when break statement comes, it breaks at that particular point. Thus, it goes to n times, n different options. That is, the value of A is n. So in that, if that is true, then we goes to the case n actions. The n, that number of possibilities are there. Then a default condition is also possible. Default condition in the sense, if the value that is input doesn't belong to this A, none of the possibilities that are that we have given as cases, case 1, 2, 3, etc. up to n we have given. If the value that we input doesn't belong to any of these specified values, then what is to be done? So that is the default condition. So this is usable in the case of multiple selection programs, where the user can select a number of different options from a given set of options. The user can select a single option from a number of given options. So that is that sort of problems, or that sort of programs can be incorporated using this switch case statements. So this is the switch construct. So this is the condition, switch then condition. The condition is normally a single variable. Most of the time it will be only a single variable. Switch then condition. The condition is only a single variable. So then case. Then we start, after this switch condition, we start this, that is the curly braces we start. And within the curly braces, you have to give the keyword case. Switch is a keyword, then case is another keyword. Case, then case, the value for that particular condition, that is any specific value. Say if it is condition is A or condition is X, in that case, what value is possible? One of the possible values of this condition. So that is the template one. So the first template one, then the statements. Then after the statements, you have to put a break. What will happen if it is not considered, if this particular break is not given, inserted inside this one is, then the rest of the statements, the rest of the conditions will be executed. If we remove this break from here, the rest of the conditions will also be executed. That is, these statements will also be executed until it finds a break, or until it terminates this switch condition. That is, this particular thing is, this particular curly brace is found out, or the break is found out. It will continuously execute. That we will see through an example. So then the next case, the case 2, that is the template 2. Template 2 is any possible value that can be assigned by this particular condition. So that way there are n different templates possible. Then after this template, once this template is given, you have to put a colon also. That is, the colon is also to be put after the template value. That is the constant value or the constant character value, etc. That value. The problem with this switch case statement is that this cannot be a conditional statement. This has to be a constant value. It should be a fixed value. No, what you say, the expressions is possible there. No expressions is possible inside this one. So after this one, you have to put a colon. A colon is to be put. Then, as usual, in all the C statements, you have to terminate the statements with a semicolon. Then finally the break statement also, that is also to be terminated with a semicolon. So that way the up to n templates are possible. Then after the n template is over, you can give a default statement also. This default statement is not necessary. Yeah, even if you doesn't put the default statement, what will happen is, if we ended, or if we give a value which is not possible, or which is not within this template 1 to n, then nothing will happen. Then that switch condition won't be executed. But if you have given a statement like this default statement, if you have given a default statement, in that case, if the value that is given to the condition is not within this particular template 1, template 2, or template 3 list, within that, even if it is not within the list, then this condition, this particular statements will be executed. So then once this switch condition is over, that is the switch condition is over by this particular curly brace, the ending of the curly brace, then the next statement will be executed. So that is explained here. First, it evaluates the condition and compares its value with the templates following each case label. So this is the case label and this is the corresponding template value, that is the possible value for the condition. So if a match is found between the condition and one of the templates, execution is transferred to the statements that follows the case label. So if a possible match, if the condition is evaluated and if a possible match for that particular condition is found out, then the control is transferred to that particular template or that particular case statements. So if no match is found, then execution is transferred to the optional default level. So that is, if no match is found, then it will be transferred to this default level. If no match is found and there is no default label, then execution passes to the first statement following the switch statement, closing brace, which is the next statement. So that is the condition. If default statement is not present, in case if this one is not present and no match is found, in that case the control is passed to this statement, this next statement. So to ensure that only the statements associated with the matching template are executed, we include a break keyword wherever needed, which terminates the entire switch statement. So once this template 1 is executed, that is this particular label, the statements under this particular label is executed, then you have to give a break statement. So this terminates, this break statement terminates the switch case condition. The switch statement it terminates. Otherwise, if it doesn't put a break here, then all the statements after that after that template case label, case template 1 will be executed till the end. Till the end, that means until we find a break statement, until we find a break statement, or until the switch statement is completed. The switch statement is completed by this, the ending curly brace. So the statements, in this case, the statements can be a block of codes which has to be inserted inside the curly braces. So let's see a switch case statement as an example. Let's see. Okay, this is a switch case statement. That is, we have defined a particular value or particular character type variable. This grade is a character type variable, char grade. It is initialized as B. The character grade is initialized as B. Then we switch to grade. Switch. This is the switch statement. And within bracket the condition. The condition is grade. So depending on the value of the grade, one of these values will be printed. So what happens in this case is that case A is given as excellent, then it breaks. Case B, nothing is given. So what will happen? Nothing is given. So nothing will be executed since the break statement is not there. Since the break statement is not there, obviously it will go to the case C also. That is printf well done. So the well done will be printed. So in this case, case B as well as case C prints you the well done. So after this line of code, there is a break. So obviously this will be ending there. Then case D, if the value was D, then what it would have been printed is you passed. And then the break. If the case is F, if grade is given as F, then better try again. So then again break. And if the value doesn't belong to any of this, that is the default condition, then default it will give you an invalid grade. Then finally after this here that ends the switch statement. The switch statement is ended here. Then after that this one is printed, that is your grade is %C grade. So grade in this case is B, so B will be printed. Your grade is B, the statement will be printed here. So let us compile it and then execute this what is coming in. So well done, your grade is B. Well done is printed because in the case B, inside the case B, there is no statements are given. So obviously, whatever is within the also being executed. If we have put a break statement here, suppose we put no statements inside this one, but instead we put a break statement. If we put a break statement here and then compile, then execute. See, nothing is executed because this break statement broke the switch statements. That particular condition is broken by this particular break statement. So nothing is printed. Only this, your grade is B. That is only the thing that is printed. So if I remove break from here, I remove the break from here, that is well done will be printed if the case is B, and I remove this the break from here also. So from C also I remove the break. Then what will be executed? So compiled it, then executed. See, well done, you passed. So well done is printed because in the case B there is nothing available. So well done is printed. Then you passed. You passed this printed. You passed this the case D. Because after this well done, there is no break statement. So you pass this also printed. So you pass this case D, even the case D is also printed here. So this is the condition with a simple switch case statement. Instead, if we remove this one to say D, if the character is changed to D, what will happen? Let's see. In that case, only you pass this printed because this is the condition. This case D is the condition where the grade is equal. The grade is equal to D, the character D. So case D, that is the character D. So that is where you passed comes up. So that is how the switch case statements works. That is, the break is necessary. Suppose we change the value to G. G is nowhere in this particular statements. In this particular conditions, the cases are A, B, C, D, and F. But I put a grade as the character grade as G. So in that case, what will be coming up? So that shows you an invalid grade. Why? Because invalid grade, because it is the default statement. That is, no value, no case labels matches with the label that is available for grade. For grade, the value is G, and no case label has a value equal to G. So that is why it is the default is printed. So the default invalid grade is printed, and your grade is G. That is also printed. So this is how the switch case statements works. Now, coming back to our presentation, the differences between the nested if and the switch case is that in the case of switch case permits the execution of more than one alternatives by not placing break. So if you doesn't place a break inside a particular switch statement or case label, if you doesn't put a break statement, so then what happens is the next case label, whatever statements is under the next case label, that is also executed, as we have seen. Well done as well as you passed, that two statements were printed together because we removed a break statement. So that is the importance of break statements along with the switch statement. So that is possible. That way of more than executing more than one alternatives is possible in a switch case statement by removing the break. Whereas in the if statement it does not. In the if statement, only one set of statements will be executed. In the case of if and if else if, if else if, etc., whatever way we does the if statement, only one statement will be executed. So this means that the alternatives in an if statement are mutually exclusive. That is, if one is executing, no others will be executed. But in the case of switch case statement, more than one alternatives can be executed together. whereas they may or may not be in the case of switch case statements. The switch case statement can be made mutually exclusive by using the break statements, or they may not be mutually exclusive also because you can remove the break statement and thus more than one case statements can be executed together. So then the other difference is that a switch can only perform equality tests involving integer or character constants, whereas the if statement allows more general comparison involving other data types as well. So that is it. So in the case of switch, the difficulty with the switch is that it takes only integer or character constant values. You cannot give a value like 2.5 and ask the case statement to execute it. So that won't execute, that won't happen. It can take only the integer values or character constants. In the previous example that we discussed, in that case we were using the character constants. The character constants, capital A, capital B, capital C. So that sort of capital letters were being used. Even the small letters is also possible. That also can be used, but only the integer constant or character constants can be used. None of the other values can be used. And even the the conditional operators cannot be used in the case of switch. Inside the switch, you cannot put a condition like this: case A is greater than 10. So this sort of thing won't work. So when you put switch A, if you put switch A, then the case has to be either an integer value like 10, 9, 8, etc. So this type of values, or it can be, the A can be depending on the type of A. If A is defined as a character, that is char A, if A is defined as char A, then only the character values will be possible there. So A or C or 9, even this is a character. So these type of values is possible only in the case of switch case statements. But in the case of if statements, you can give the conditional statements also. So that is the difference between the nested if and switch. So when there are more than 3 or 4 conditions, use the switch case break statement rather than a long nested if statements. So if more than 4 or 3 or 4 conditions are to be tested, then it is wise to use the switch case break statements rather than using the if statements, because in the case of nested if it goes to more than 4 levels, in that case it will be very difficult for us to decide what will happen in each of the conditions. So it is always better to go for the switch case break statements if there are more than 3 or 4 conditions are to be evaluated. And the switch case statement is to be used when there are multiple options to choose from. That is, the options are integer values or character constant values. Then obviously you can take in, or you can use the switch case values or switch case statements in order to do the programming. So when test condition only use integer or character constants, that is that we have already said that the switch case is possible only when the test condition is only an integer or a constant. So now we have completed the different conditional branching statements, that is the if, nested if else, etc. And the switch case is also we have completed. Now we go for the for statement. The for statement is actually a looping statement, that is, or a repetition statement. The repetition statement is nothing but we have to repeat a specific set of codes or a specific block of codes. If we want to repeat a specific set of codes for a certain number of times, so in that case what we have to use is we have to loop that particular statements repeatedly until a specific condition comes up for terminating the loop. So that is how the for loop is acting. So for loop executes a code block for a certain number of times. That is a prefixed or predefined number of times. If a set of codes are to be executed for a number of times, for a specified number of times, then the for statement is used. So in the code block, it may have no statement, one statement or more. That is possible. So a code block with no statement is also possible. That is inside a for loop. There is no statement is being executed. That is also possible. That is also being used. And the for statement causes the for loop to be executed in a fixed number of times. So the for loop is used to execute a specific set of statements for a specified number of times, for a fixed number of times. More than that, we cannot change the number of times without changing the for condition, the condition in which the for statement is to be executed. So the following is the for statement form. So the for statement form is something like this. That is, initially we start with a for. This is a keyword for. Then the initial value of the variable for which the condition is to be checked. The initial value may be some, say, I equal to 0. I equal to 0. That is what is happening. So I is initialized to 0. That is the initial value. Then the condition, say I is less than or equal to 10. So I is less than or equal to 10. That is the condition. So then the increment or decrement, I plus plus. So that is the increment condition. So this sort of initial value is given, then a condition. The condition for checking or terminating the loop. How many number of times this particular for statement is to be executed. The statement within this for statement is to be executed. That is decided by this particular condition. That is I less than or equal to 10. Or I less than 10, or I greater than 10, I greater than 0, etc. etc. Whatever condition you can give. But the difficulty is that if the condition that is given is not proper, if that is not a well-defined condition, in that case, the loop may execute infinite number of times. That is, it won't terminate. That is also possible in some cases when you are doing the programming using looping. A specific statement will be continuously being executed without terminating it. That is possible. That happens because of the giving this condition is not proper, or giving the increment is not proper. That is also possible. Then the increment is to be done. Increment, or it can be decrement also. That can be different. That is, it can either an increment statement or it can be either a decrement statement. So then the next is the different statements. So within this one, different statements are executed. So the statements can be, if there is only a single statement, then you don't have to give the input the double braces or the double this particular curly braces. You don't have to input. But if there are multiple statements, then obviously you have to input the curly braces. Otherwise, what will happen is that only the first statement will be executed the number of times. The other statements will be executed only after the for condition is terminated. Then once the for condition is terminated, this next statement comes up. So one common mistake that students make is that at the end of this for statement, you put a semicolon. At the end of this particular statement, if you put a semicolon, this particular line of code will treat this for statement as the for loop as a for loop with no statements inside it. So you should not put a semicolon here unless you want to make this particular loop to run without executing any specific statements. So the initial value, the condition, and increment and decrement are any valid C expressions. These can be any valid C expressions. The statements may be a single or compound statement. That is, a block of code is possible in the case of statements. When for statement is encountered during program execution, the following events occurs. That is, when a for statement is executed or encountered during the program execution, what happens is the initial value is initially evaluated. That is, for example, int equal to num. So this is evaluated first. This particular value is initialized to 1. So then the condition is evaluated. Then the condition, this particular condition is evaluated. Typically, it is a relational expression. So that is a relational expression, and this relational expression evaluates to false. The for statement terminates. If that particular evaluation condition, this particular condition is evaluated to be false, then the for statement terminates, and it is passed. The control is passed. The execution is passed to the next statement. If the condition evaluates as true, that is a non-zero condition. If that particular condition is evaluated as true, that is a non-zero value, then the statement is executed. So that is the condition. That is, if the condition is evaluated to a non-zero value, that is, it is evaluated to true, then the statements within the for loop are executed. The next is the increment or decrement is executed, and the execution returns to step number 2 until condition becomes false. So this repeats until this particular condition, the condition becomes false. So that is how the for loop is acting. So this is the flow chart of a for loop. In most of the cases, we evaluate the initial value. So then we evaluate the conditions. Then this particular condition is true, execute the statements, do the increment, then again comes back here. So that particular for statement has to be, if you want to convert a for statement into corresponding flowchart, then the for statement should contain at least these many things, these many blocks. So that is the evaluation of the initial value, then the evaluating the conditions. If the condition is true, you have to execute the statement. Then the increment is being done. Increment or decrement. It can be decrement also. Increment or decrement is done. Then again it comes back to the evaluating the conditions. Again the condition is evaluated, whether it is true or false. If it is true, again this repeats until this condition becomes false. Once this condition becomes false, it is terminated. The program is, the for loop is terminated. So that is how the for loop works. Now let us see a simple C program. For C program using the for loop. And before that, let us see a C program, a program with a nested switch. That is a switch inside a switch. So that is this condition. So we have initialized two variables A and B. Is initialized to A is initialized to 100 and B is initialized to 100. Switch A, the case is 100. Then printf, this is the part of the outer switch. Then inside this case 100, inside the case 100, we are giving another case, another switch condition, that is switch B. Switch B is inserted inside the case 100 label, switch B, and in the switch B, the case 200 label is also inserted, the case 200. Then printf, this is part of the inner switch. So that is two different switches are there. Then the printf exact value of A is something, and the exact value of B is this one. So this is how it is being executed. So that is so this is how it executed. This is the part of the outer switch. This is part of the outer switch is shown first. This is part of the outer switch that is displayed first. Then this is part of the inner switch that is here. This is displayed next. Now let us change, make a small change. Say here we insert a default condition. So here we inserted a default condition and a printf is also inserted. So what will happen? So I put a statement like this. This is default, and then we change the value of B2 again, say 100. The B is also changed to 100. Then let us try how it will be executed. So see the difference. So here the second switch, this is default, that is printed here. Instead of this, this is the part of inner switch. Since there is a default statement with the and B, the value of B is 100, so it is printed as this is default. So like this, you can create a number of nested switch cases also you can create. But mostly the nested switch cases are not of much use in our small programs, but in the case of very large programs, it is of use. Like in the case of, as I said, in the case of telecalling, you press one value and then another set of options comes up. If you press one, then a set of options will be, a menu will be what you say, pronounced to you. That is, it will be read out to you, so that you have to select another option. So that's that way how that is being executed, that is using this nested switch. Now let us see a simple program in which the simple for loop is used. So we define an integer value or integer variable n count. An integer variable n count is defined here. Then the for statement is, we are starting the for statement. For, this is how it is being written. Then initially the for, then the bracket starts the parenthesis. This should be inside the parenthesis. The initialization, the condition, as well as the increment, that should be inside the parenthesis. So n count is initialized to 1. N count, the value n count is initialized to 1. Then we check n count is less than or equal to 10. If it is less than or equal to 10, then this is to be executed, this particular statement, print %d n count. This is to be executed. Then n count is incremented by 1. So that is n count plus plus means n count is incremented by 1. So until this n count becomes 10, this printf statement will work, or printf will be executed. So let us try it out. Compile it, then we are running it. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So during the first during the first execution, n count was 1. N count was 1. So n count is less than or equal to 10. So n count is, since n count is less than or equal to 10, the printf %d statement is executed. That is, 1 is displayed here. Then the next, going to the next loop. Then n count plus plus, n count is incremented. So n count is incremented. Then again the condition is checked. The condition is checked. The n count is now 2. Once the n count is incremented, now the n count is 2. So n count became 2. So 2 is again less than or equal to 10. So that is, this statement is executed. That is, 2 is printed or displayed here. Then again n count is incremented. So n count becomes 3. We are checking whether n count is less than or equal to 10. It is less than 10. So the print n count is printed here. So 3 is printed. Likewise, it goes to up to 10. When n count becomes 10, n count is less than or equal to 10. So it is equal to 10. So n count is printed. So that is, the 10 is printed. Then n count is incremented. So n count becomes 11. So once this n count becomes 11, this condition fails. This condition evaluates to false. That is, n count is less than or equal to 10. That condition evaluates to false. So the program terminates. And not the program terminates, but the for loop terminates. The for loop terminates, and the control comes outside the for loop. So then it goes to the printf statement. Printf/n, that is, a new line is printed here. So this is how the simple for loop works.